Welcome to Unboxing Sunday of authors that I don't know about. Authors I have not read. They're not my authors. I'm not familiar with these authors. And I feel like we should be doing Christmas stuff at this juncture. We'll leave that to If Then on Fridays. So welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina Stina. This is where I read book, talk about books, no special effects, no theme music, none of that fancy stuff going on here. And so today we're going to do unboxing of books. I got books. I got a large, huge delivery. And most of them you won't see. They're just going to the charity right off the bat. But I've got a couple of boxes here. We'll go through and we'll see how many authors I recognize. But most of these, on first glance, I didn't recognize most of them. So we'll see if you recognize any of them. So, The Insane Train, a Hook Runyon mystery. The Baldwin Insane Asylum in Barstow, California has recently burned to the ground in an inferno that cost many inmates their lives and injured scores. Now, yard dog Hook Runyon has been put in charge of security for a train that is to transport the survivors. Along the head of the asylum, Dr. Baldwin, the standing doctor, Taciturn Dr. Helms, and a self-sacrificing nurse named Andrea, to a new location in Oklahoma. Hook hires a motley crew of physicians and mentally damaged World War II veterans to help, and they set up for a new destination. Before long, things go awry in the insane train as several inmates and attendants are found dead, and Baldwin seems increasingly disoriented and incapable of running the operations. Okay, bear with me on this. See? The minute I put the camera on her, she changes her mind. She was destroying that box. Now she's gonna walk away. Sorry. Oh, the glare. Sorry. Sorry about that. I'm horrible with these camera things. I wish I was sophisticated and had one of those. One of the people that I watch has one of those other cameras they put here that you can watch their cat walk around the room while they talk to him. So see what happens there. Richard Paul Evans, The Walk. Um The Walk depicts the beginning of his journey through Washington state, the people he meets, the relationships he forms, and the lessons he learns as he walks toward a new life. With over 14 million copies of this book in print in more than 22 languages, Richard Paul Evans is one of the world's most widely read novelists. Okay. Yes, ma'am. I think we've seen this one before. Um, there isn't, uh, Elmore has written more than 40 books, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't say what this book is about on the back. It just gives a critically acclaimed stuff. So there's nothing we can do about that. It doesn't really say anything. Brings back U.S. Marshal Ryan Givens, the laconic Stetson wearing, the fast-growing woman of Parento riding the rap, and the hit FX series Justified in this thrill. So let's go with that. Carol O'Connell, Find Me. Over the course of 8 novels, Carl O'Connor and her protagonist, New York detective Kathy Malloy, have carved a unique place for themselves. Brilliant storytelling and vivid characterizations are really as perfectly combined as they are here. A mutilated body is found lying on the ground in Chicago, a dead hand pointing down Adams Street, also known as Route 66, a road of many names and now of many deaths. A silent caravan of cars, dozens of them, drive down the road, each passenger bearing a photograph, but none of them the same. They are the parents of missing children, some recently disappeared, some gone a decade or more, all brought together by the word that children's gravesites are being discovered along the Mother Road. See what happens there. Ups. I can't even pronounce this. Roberto Ampuero. A party in 1970 Chile, Satan Brille meets Pablo Neruda, the great poet and national hero at the height of his fame. But the elderly poet is full of secrets. One, he's dying, and he recruits Cantino to help him resolve another. So Cantino takes on his first case as a private detective to solve Neruda's last great mystery. The young man must travel around the globe and through Neruda's life and past in search of answers. Neruda's hidden agenda is slowly revealed as Cantino's worldwide expedition, which ends up back in Chile, where Picanto coops players out against the final revelation of his journey, set against the fraught politics of the pre-Chino Chile, Castro's Cuba, and the perilous behind the wall East Berlin Wall. Okay. Are you coming back? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Oops. Shoot. She dropped. She dropped. You good now? That was a fall. We need to get bigger stairs. I know. I know. Mommy moved the case over here. She shouldn't have moved it over here. But until we find another one. Oh. I know her. I haven't seen her in a long time. I know this one, though. I haven't seen her in a very long time. I don't even know if she's shown up in Flashback Mondays. She's kind of that old. Susan KRINARD, the Forest Lord. After a night of heated passion 6 years ago, Eden Hemming made the shattering discovery that the man she was almost to marry was no mortal. He was a monster, a woodland guardian spirit named Lord Hearn, who needed an heir to end the exile that had been imposed upon him. Devastated by his deception, Eden fled Hasmere and wed another. In deep sleep for last 5 years, Hearn, the Forest Lord, has been informed that Eden, the woman he courted all those years ago, and who had shunned his true form, has returned to Hotmere along with the boy he'd been told was dead. Vowing to steal back his son and wreak vengeance against the woman who betrayed him. Hearn assumes the identity of a servant named Hartley Shaw, but with each moment he spends with the elegant woman and his beautiful son, he begins to fall in love. Been there, done that. Never heard of her either. ANNAMARIA ALFIERI, Invisible Country. Against a war against Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay, and devastated Paraguay, 90% of the males between the age of 8 and 80 have died in a conflict, and food is scarce. In the small village of Santa Catarina, Padre advises the women of his congregation to abandon the laws of the church and get pregnant by what men are available. As he leaves the pulpit, he discovers the murdered body of Ricardo Yate, one of the most powerful men in the country, at the bottom of the belfry. See who murdered that? Never heard of him either. Her, I have no idea. J.M. Cortez. At the corner of the book is Senior C, an aging author who has been asked to write the thoughts on the state of the world by his German publisher. These thoughts, called Strong Opinions, address a wide range of subjects, including a scathing indictment of George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Tony Blair, as well as withering, honest examinations of everything Machiavellian. Okay. Not a clue. Christopher Farnsworth? John Smith has a special gift that seems more like a curse. He can access other people's thought. He hears the song stuck in their heads, knows their most private traumas and fears, and relives the most famous painful memories they can't let go of. CIA has honed his skills until he was one of their most powerful operatives, but John fled the agency and now works as a private consultant, trying to keep the dark potentials of his gift in check and himself out of trouble. Unfortunately, John is unexpectedly plunged into dangerous waters when his last client, billionaire software genius Everett Sloan, hires him to investigate a former employee, a tech wizard kid named Ellie Preston, and search his thoughts for some valuable intellect property he's been stolen. Okay. Never heard of her either. Ellen Feldman, Terrible Virtue. The daughter of a hard-drinking, smooth-tongued freethinker and mother worn down by 13 children, Margaret Sanger vowed her life would be different. Trained as a nurse, she fought her social justice, eventually channeling her energy to one singular cause, legalizing contraception. It was a battle that would pit her against puritanical patriarchal lawmakers, sent her to prison again and again, and forced her to flee to England, and ultimately changed the lives of women across the country and around the world. Okay. I don't think I've heard of him. John Cleary. Morning's Gone. Matt Durbin is a seasoned politician, a hardworking country boy now tipped to lead his party. The weekend before the big vote, he's back in the hometown of Calamandria, canvassing support and catching up with family. His wife Carmel has been eternally supportive, a loyal partner during the trials and tribulations of life in the public eye. But she's also got political views of her own, and they aren't always appreciated by some of the bigger fish. Inevitably, the demands of Matt's career have tested their marriage, but can he and Carmel strive together to make it work? See what happens there. Him. Well, I will do her. I know her, but we haven't seen her in a while. Mary Higgins Clark, Daddy's little girl. Ellie Calavan was only 7 years old when her 15-year-old sister Andrea was murdered near their home in Oldham on the Hudson, a rural village in New York's Westchester County. There were 3 suspects: Rob Westerfield, 19-year-old scion of a wealthy, prominent family whom Andrea had secretly dating; Paul Strobel, a 16-year-old schoolmate who had a crush on Andrea; and Will Nebels, a local handyman in his 40s. It is Ellie who had led her parents to hide out in the Andrea's body was found, a secret hideaway in which she met her friends, and it was Ellie who was blamed by her parents for her sister's death for not telling him about the place sooner. Not good, not good, not good, not good. Richard Ford, The Lay of the Land. Within the sports writer in 1986, Richard Ford commenced a cycle of novels that 10 years later, after Independence Day, won the Pulitzer Prize. Okay. His story zooms in the autumn of 2000 when his trade as a realtor on the Jersey Shore is driving, permitting him to revel in the acceptance of that long stretch out time when my dreams would have mystery like any ordinary person's. When whatever I do or say or whom I marry, how my kids turn up, becomes what the world is, it makes it note at if it makes note at all, knows of me, how I seem understood, even how I think of myself before whatever that is that's wild and uninsatiable rises and cheerlessly calls me off to oblivion. Okay. I don't get it. But anyways. Um Anne Emery. Sicilian Vespers? Don't know. Now in the dark of a moonless November night, robed figures gathered before the black wooden doors of the church. The scene was indistinguishable from one that might have taken place in the early Middle Ages. We were far away in a time from modern-day Halifax, priests in vestments, monks in cowls, nuns in habits, choir boys in white surplices. We possessed into the nave and down the aisle. A candle in the red glass flickered on the altar. Our golden candles were the only other light. The only warmth and sense waved back to us from the front of the procession. 2 by 2, we took our places in the sanctuary for the office of vestals, by which we could consecrate the end of the day to God. All vain evil, and distracting thoughts melted away, and I felt myself at peace in a way I had never known before. The peace was shattered by a scream. We all whirled towards the sound. There, slumped against the wall, was a figure in white vestments and a Roman collar, drenched with blood. The blood was everywhere on the wall and all over the man's body, which had been severed from his head. Uh, um, Never heard of him. Michael Allen DYMMOCH, White Tiger. John Thin's a detective on the Chicago police force, and Jack Caleb, a well-known psychiatrist, were friends, unlikely friends. Maybe with very different lives, but men who liked and respected each other, and they had one significant experience in common. Both had been in country in Vietnam during the war. Their labels were different. Thanes had been in the military police, Caleb a medic, a conscientious objector, who chose to fight with his medical equipment and his ability as a doctor as weapons. Arriving home, both men would have liked to forget the horrors of the war, but that could not vanish from their memories. They had left Vietnam, but Vietnam had not left them. Uh, do we know her? E. Fisher, the best Jays yet to be? The summer just around the bend, Katie is delighted to see how Faith Briar Church Faith Freezer program is meeting the needs of the elderly citizens in Copper Mill. But when a series of deaths indicate that one of their volunteers is stealing from the shut-ins, the whole program is cast into doubt. Who would do such a thing? Kate begins to investigate, but ancient secrets, old jealousies, and long-lost love complicate the truth. Meanwhile, Paul has joined a bluegrass band and is practicing at the notorious Roadhouse, the Deep Dew Inn. The group's jam sessions end in discord, and their location leads to suspicion about the pastor's real pastimes. As they struggle to bring harmony back to Cooper Mill, Kate and Paul are reminded that they have always had hope for the future. The best is yet to be. See what happens there. I have no idea. Neil Stephenson, an anthem? Anthem? Think? Good lord, this thing is heavy. Anthem is the latest invention of the New York Times bestselling author Kryptonian. The Baroque cycle is a magnificent creation, a work of great scope, intelligence, and imagination that ushers in readers into an unrecognizable yet strangely inverted world. Farah Esmond is a young savior, avowed living in consent of this. I have no idea what. SAUNTEDHAR. A sanctuary for mathematicians, scientists, and philosophers protected from the corrupting influences of the outside secular world by ancient stone, honored traditions, and complex rituals. Over the centuries, cities and governments have risen and fallen beyond the concrete walls. 3 times during the history's darkest escapades, violence born of superstition and ignorance has invaded and devastated the cloistered mathematic community. Okay, this thing is heavy. Oh god, that's heavy. Um, let's see, I know those people. I know him. Tamera Alexander to win her favor. A gifted rider in a world where ladies never race, Maggie Linden is determined that her horse will become a champion. But the one man who could help her has vowed to stay away from racing forever. Irishman Colin McGrath left a prosperous life in England because of a horse racing scandal that nearly ruined him. He's come to Nashville for a fresh start, hoping to buy land and begin farming, but starting over is harder than he wagered, especially when Maggie Linden's father makes him an offer he can't refuse. Ah. Eric Jerome Dickey, Decadence. I guess we'll end with romance, huh? 4 years have passed since the events of Pleasure, and Nina's success as a writer has grown, bringing from her Atlanta to Los Angeles, but there remains on a quest to quiet her inner storm, to draw on the well of emotions and explore them before fully moving on. Okay. Um, uh, I recognize this name. Robin Pilcher, a worth taking. Um, After the dot-com bubble burst, Dan Porter is laid off from his job and must decide what is truly important. His wife of 20 years, Jackie, a beautiful and successful managing director at a clothing design shop, no longer connects with him. His teenagers, Joss, Nina, and Millie, are distant and confusing. Jackie is tempted by the attentions of a younger man in her office, and thanks to opportunities suggested by a magazine article, Dan finds himself contemplating a drastic change in life. A Risk Worth Taking is an insightful, thoughtful, provoking novel of a man who has to discover the real meaning of his work and marriage. And, uh, we had him, he came up in the, If Then the other day, or a couple months ago, should I say. But I've never seen one of his books. Michael Robotham. This was the name of a TV series. I wonder if this is. On a cold London night, homicide detective Vincent Roos is fished out of the Thames with a bullet in his leg and no memory of the circumstances surrounding the shooting. In his pocket is a photograph of Mickey Carlisle, a 7-year-old girl kidnapped 3 years before and presumed dead. It's anybody's guess what Ruiz was up to, especially when a blood-spattered boat discovered nearby makes it clear that Ruiz was not the sole casualty. But with Mickey's killer convicted and behind bars, no one wants the case reopened. Rui's only hope of unraveling the puzzle is to retrace his steps and recreate the night of the shooting. Under investigation by his colleagues and accused of faking amnesia, Ruiz turns to Jack O'Laughlin, hoping that the psychologist can unlock his memory and he can put the pieces together of what happened. Shall we do? I have no idea who this is. Amy Lou. From on assignment in India with her journalist husband, Joanna Shore runs a refuge for girls trafficked into Delhi's red light district. It is here in the dusty, baked sun streets of the old city that she discovers the turquoise-eyed Camilla. Joanna vows to rescue Camilla from the brothel or flash house where the 11-year-old has spent most of her life. But it is Camilla who claims Joanna at first sight, and when Joanna's husband Aiden disappears while pursuing a politically explosive story in the mountains of Kashmir, it's Camilla who must come to Joanna's emotional rescue. All right. I think. All right, last one. Shelley Parker Chan, She Who Became the Sun. In famine-stricken village on a dusty yellow plain, two children are given two fates. A boy greatness, a girl nothingness. In 1345, China lies under harsh Mongol rule. For the starving peasants of the Central Plains, greatness is something found only in stories. When Zhu family's eighth-born son, Zhu Chumba, is given a fate of greatness, everyone is mystified as to how it will come to pass. The fate of nothingness received by the family's clever and capable second daughter, on the other hand, is only as expected. When a bandit attacks orphans, the two children, though, Zhu Changba, who succumbs to despair and dies. Desperate to escape her own fated death, the girl uses her brother's identity to enter a monastery as a young male novice. Interesting. So that was today's box. I don't even know half of those authors. Actually, I don't know most of those authors. Maybe you noticed one or recognized one. I hope you have a good Sunday. Have a good one.